Hello, my beautiful friends. It's Amanda here, and today we're talking about this new palette from Too Faced. This is their famous fall palette release. This year's offering is called Maple Syrup Pancakes. I purchased mine from Ulta, and this is retail priced at $54 US. I am a huge fan of this large palette fall release that we get from Too Faced every year. It's one of those consistent releases that I always look forward to every year. Much like the MAC holiday collection, I always look forward to that. And I have to say, the past couple of years, this fall Too Faced palette and the MAC holiday collections have not really been that great for me. And you know what? I have a lot of thoughts about this palette, some of which are good, most of which are dissatisfied. I take no pleasure in giving negative reviews to any product ever. I want to like things, especially when I spend my money on them. I really buy them anticipating enjoying them and using them and loving them and being really happy with them. And I don't hate this palette. I'm not gonna go run it over with my car or anything, but it's definitely missing the mark for me in a couple different ways. There are also some positive things, so I want to give you the full rundown. I'm going to give you all my thoughts, good, bad, and medium. Perhaps the things that I don't love about this palette might actually work for you. So I'm going to give you as much info as possible so that hopefully you can make the right decision for yourself. Like most of the Too Faced eyeshadow palettes, this one is scented. It is very lightly scented. I had to really stick my nose in here and sniff to pick up on the maple syrup scent. It definitely has a super sweet maple syrup pancakes scent, but it is not overwhelming. It's not one of those old school Too Faced scented palettes where you barely crack it open and the smell comes rushing out at you. This is very, very subtle, very lightly scented. I like the fragrance addition, particularly to these themed palettes. It just works well for me. But I always try to mention that because I know some people are sensitive to fragrance in their makeup, allergic to it, or just simply don't like it. So it's there, it's subtle, but it's there. I'm going to show you close-ups, swatches. I only have one comparison for this palette, basically because it's just so different from the other fall palettes. I have one comparison that I do think is worth talking about, and I'm also going to show you this palette in action. The eye look that I'm wearing today, I actually really love how it turned out. So, like I said, I have a lot of complicated feelings, good, bad, and in between. Let's start with a close-up look at this palette and its packaging, and then we'll get into swatches and a tutorial.
The front of the outer carton and the front of the actual palette itself have the exact same graphic on the front. However, the back is where they look different. The outer carton has a picture of the shades that are inside the palette. This is helpful for when it's sitting on a shelf, especially if there's no tester available. And there's also some information here about the palette. And then on the palette itself, again, same cover art. I like the idea of this glossy looking texture on the lettering and on the syrup on top of the pancakes. And then on the back, there's no photo of the shades, but there is some of that same information about the shadows. Inside the palette, there is a mirror, a little bite of pancakes on a fork there, very cute detail. And then thanks to this reflective gold background, it is a little bit difficult to get the right lighting for these shadows, but I'm going to try to move around the palette and the lighting so that you can get a bunch of different viewpoints on these shadows. We have 5 true matte shades. There is one matte with glitter. It's that lightest shade called Powdered Sugar. And then there are 12 shimmer shades. The shimmers have some different textures, which will be more discernible in the swatch portion of the video. Some are satiny, some are more of a glittery type of topper, some are more foily. This is an overwhelmingly shimmery palette, although I am glad to say there's no pressed glitter or any eye safety warnings as far as this palette is concerned. My biggest complaint about this packaging is this little lip that holds the mirror in place on the top of the cardboard packaging. You have to maneuver it just so to get it to actually sit flush into the top of the area that holds the actual pans of eyeshadow. That is a little bit annoying. I'm always fiddling with it and struggling with it. I wish that it was a little bit easier to close. It's not like it's impossible, it's just a little pet peeve of mine that I wanted to point out. Now we're taking a look at the swatches of this maple syrup pancakes palette. Finger swatches on top, each corresponding brush swatch is below. These are done with no primer, no dampened brush, just the shadows applied directly to my skin. And I think, first of all, you can tell these aren't the most intense shadows ever. And when we get a closer look at each individual shadow, I think you'll really be able to tell. But the second half of the palette is definitely better than the first half. All in all, I think the formulas are just very inconsistent. I mean, this powdered sugar shade barely even shows up on my skin. That one is by far my least favorite shade. Overall, just very underwhelming performance-wise. And the deeper shades are a little bit better, and this translates over to application to the eye as well, in my experience. More on that in the tutorial portion, but I do want to show you one quick comparison. This palette that you see on top here is the Pumpkin Spice palette. It's the fall release from a couple of years ago, and it is, in contrast to this palette, my favorite of the fall palettes ever released from Too Faced. You can really tell when you see these swatches side by side just the difference in richness and opacity. And this Pumpkin Spice palette, like I said, it's a couple years old, and it is blowing this maple syrup pancakes palette out of the water formula wise. Pumpkin Spice is decidedly warmer. It has a couple of those warm tone, golden, orangey, matte shades. But all in all, the color stories aren't wildly different. Pumpkin Spice is definitely the closest one color story wise with some of these greens and purples. But the performance is just absolutely undeniably different between these two. Now, I am going to stick to some of the shades in the second half of the palette. Like I mentioned in the swatch portion, these are much higher performing shades than the first row and a half or so in the Maple Syrup Pancakes palette. Plus, I just love this swampy green shade called Morning Matcha. I think that the whole Morning Matcha name for this shade is a bit of a flimsy way to wedge this color into a theme that it doesn't really fit into. However, I am not too mad about it because this is definitely the best matte shade in the entire palette, performance-wise. Plus, I just like this color, so I'm glad it's here, but I don't think it fits the theme at all. This eye look is really just the best of the best shadows here. I think I could probably get another couple of eye looks that applied and wore as well as this one, but I definitely couldn't even count on 50% of the shades to give me this type of blending ability, this type of wear time. And I have to say, as much as I'm ragging on this palette, and a lot of these shades are very underwhelming and pretty terrible to work with, this particular eye look not only ended up looking beautiful, I wore this for like 6 or 7 hours. I had to do some outdoor event type of stuff, and it's still pretty hot here. It's still 90 plus degrees here, and a lot of my makeup was smudging and wearing off and sweating off, and this eyeshadow still looked really, really good. So, I don't think we can count on the majority of these shadows to wear this well, but I have to give credit where credit is due, and this eyeshadow wore really, really well. It looked almost unchanged after several hours of wear, and I ended up being really impressed by this particular eye look. Personally, I would have liked to see a better balance between the finishes here. I think that only 5 matte shades isn't really enough to carry out a lot of the types of eye looks that I like to wear and what I assume most people like to wear. I think most of us have at least 1, 2 plus matte shades in our regular makeup application type of looks. Not always, I know there's always exceptions, and I love a really sparkly metallic eye look myself, but I think that this palette's potential could be greatly expanded with a couple more matte shades. And I really just wish overall that the shades were more consistent. I would love to see some of that richness and opacity that I'm used to from the good old days, the heydays of the Too Faced fall palettes. And, fingers crossed, I'm not giving up on them. I'm still gonna look forward to next year. I'm still gonna keep pulling for them. You know what? Too Faced, if you ever see this video, hit me up because I've loved you all these years and I would be more than happy to give you more of my ideas. Okay, anyway, shoot your shot.
So, like I said, I have very complicated feelings about this palette. I think there's a nostalgia factor that keeps me wanting to enjoy it. Honestly, I think the color story is really interesting. I would have preferred some more mattes. I would have liked to see a couple more colors in the mattes. Color story is beautiful. Love the eye look that I did. I feel like I could get a couple of eye looks that I would really, really enjoy from this palette. However, I do think that the color story and the theme don't really match up that well for me. For a pancake, I mean, when you look at the outer packaging here, I'm expecting golden, brown, warm, toasty, honey type of shades. And inside, there's really not much of that to be had. Which, like I said, is fine. I like this color story, but I don't think that it matches the pancakes theme. It just seems like two different ideas that are trying to force together that just aren't meshing. I feel similarly complicated feelings about this cardboard packaging. I know that the cardboard packaging is more environmentally friendly and also it travels better because if you drop, bump, knock, smush a cardboard palette, it can absorb shock really well. And so it does a good job, better than you would think, of protecting palettes versus a plastic or metallic casing. It absorbs a lot of shock. It's lightweight. So travel wise, environmental wise, the cardboard packaging is technically better. Maybe it's just because I'm an old school makeup lover, but I miss that snappy outer packaging. I really liked the tin packaging on these. I understand the benefits of the cardboard packaging, but I just personally prefer the tin packaging. Do with that what you will. Last, but definitely not least, performance-wise, I do think that this is the lowest performing palette of its kind. I have all of these fall palettes for the last 6 years. This is the 6th one that they've done. I have all of them. I've reviewed and swatched and tried and worn all of them. And this is the worst performing of the bunch, in my opinion. I also didn't really love last year's palette. It's not terrible. It's not impossible to work with. Some shadows are definitely a lot better than others. It's very hit or miss formula wise. The eye look that I'm wearing today, I think is beautiful. It applied easily. Everything blended well. All the colors look pretty, but I don't think that you could say that about every single shadow in here. I just think it's really inconsistent. Some of the shadows are quite powdery, quite dusty. They just don't have the richness and the opacity of past shadows, which I think you could tell just from the comparison that I did. So, maybe if you like a lighter wash of color type of application, then maybe that will work well for you. You know the phrase, one man's trash is another man's treasure. Maybe this is the type of formula you prefer. You want something lighter, softer, not quite so intense. Personally, I'm looking for a little bit more intensity, a little bit more punch from my shadows, and this just is not doing it for me. So I don't hate it, but I for sure don't love it. It's my least favorite of the fall palettes that they've ever done. And it breaks my heart to say that because I love this release and I want to come on here and be super excited about it, but I sadly am not. Now's the time when I want to hear what you think about this palette. Are you interested? Have you already picked it up? Do you have any of the previous fall release palettes? I always love to hear what you think about things too. So make sure you leave all your thoughts down in the comments below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye! It has been a hot minute since I got PR from Too Faced. Years. Which is fine. I will, if I want to review something, I'll buy it. I think most of the YouTubers you watch feel that way. I'm pretty sure. That I think is worth talking about. Worth talking about. What? It's working for me today. I'll take it. What was I doing? Oh yeah. Like mama, sweating. I have so many palettes that I want to review. This new Urban Decay one, Metal Mania, this just arrived. The casing is really beautiful. I love the packaging on that one. I have these two Gourmand Girl Halloween palettes that look so cute and I love spoopy things. And then I also have this Adept palette, the Saturn Sunset palette. This is so pretty. As you can see, I have already dug into this one. This has beautiful ombre packaging, all these gorgeous duochrome and multi-chromes. I really like the colors for the mattes. So I have a lot of stuff that I want to review. And I want to do more eye looks with the Tarte Maneater Nightfall palette. And I have all kinds of other fall stuff. I want to show you my favorite fall lip colors, favorite fall palettes. I did a fall like home decor haul, which I want to show you. I don't know. What else? What do you want to see? Oh, almost dropped this super expensive palette. Don't do that. Don't do that, Amanda. What do you want to see? Tell me in the comments what videos you think would be fun to watch, and I will try to make them if I have time, when I have time. Eventually I'll have the time. I'll get there. I have the box of shame. It is overflowing. I have exciting new releases that I can't even show you yet. Ugh. All right. Gotta get to it. Gotta go film some more stuff and go do mom stuff. Gotta go do mom stuff too. We're busy, but hopefully not so busy that I get stressed out and get shingles again. Because, fun fact, I got it twice this summer and it's for sure stress related and I don't know how to not do that. I'm working on it. Don't worry. We'll get there. But if videos are ever running late, it's so that I can avoid shingles. Wait, what? Huh? Thanks for hanging out and for listening to all my weird rambles all the time. And I hope that you have a great day. And I just realized I forgot to put my rings on after I did my skincare this morning. Still married, don't worry. All right. Love your faces. I'll see you later. Okay, bye-bye now. Bye.